This edge here is the one that's going to be sliding in first, and if it's a sharp corner, then it's going to create friction. But when the wood is met to it, it'll all be hidden inside, so I can remove a little bit of that and help myself out a little bit with assembly. All right, well, we're getting ready for assembly, and since this wood has got oil in it, I went around with a cloth and some thinners. I taped off my line because it tends to change the color of the wood. But you can actually see this brown, purpley sort of oil that's come out. Now this way the glue will have no oil to travel through before it can soak in and penetrate and grab the wood. Okay, that stuff is about 1/4 inch, maybe 6 mil, I guess you could say, interlocked. And now it's time to get glue in there as fast as possible and clamp it together. This one I'm having difficulty with. Now with a nail sticking out of it. It worked. Awesome. I had my lines drawn, and I drew my arrows on the wrong side of the line, so when I cut it, I forgot which side of the line I was cutting on. Cut on the wrong side, which turned my dovetails into being 4 millimeters too small. It's in the process of being made better, for lack of a better word. Moment I've been preparing for about 4 days now. Needless to say, I'm very nervous, because if it doesn't fit, I don't even want to think about the consequences. Ugh. Get the glue out from the inside. Now, since there was already glue in there penetrating, it's probably sealed up some of that grain, so I've scrubbed it real good with thinners, but I'm also going to score it and re-scrub it because I want the glue to have something to root into. I was watching some YouTube videos, and one of the woodworkers had mentioned that he lets his glue set for a few minutes before he adheres them. That was new to me, but it seems to me that there's good reasoning behind his reasoning. So I'm going to emulate him, because this is critical. When you're gluing end grain to end grain, it's not usually the strongest of joins. I always try to use the matching grain of the wood to fill any imperfections. I'll give you an idea about what goes through my head when I'm fixing my screw-ups. Alright? Okay, blemishes happen all the time. What can you do? I'm not a heart surgeon. Them to the belt sander to sharpen them up. You might be able to see where they've been turned into like little wedges, and each one has to sort of be shaped to shove, shaped to fit. But if you do the job right, once all this stuff is dry and sanded down, it's going to be really, really tough to identify the blemishes. It's not looking great now, but guarantee you tomorrow is going to look a whole lot better. While I was cutting this hole in my jig with this thing, that was to allow the router to move freely and to give me something to see with. Inadvertently, I also cut into the workpiece which was below it. It's been bothering me, but to be honest, the wood is so expensive that to replace that piece would cost a whole lot. So I came up with a solution. I found a piece of wood that was of similar grain to the wood that's missing, and I shaped it on my makeshift edge sander. I'm literally gonna get glue in there and pound it in. Alright, well, I'm getting ready to put the bottom in this trunk here. I've relieved a major portion of the wood so that it can be inset there. And I wanted to leave a nice big gap because there's going to be wheels. Now, we needed to save a little bit of money, and if I was going to spend another 7,000 NT on a piece of that wood, just so I could make a bottom out of it, the trunk would be extremely heavy, and it would kind of be inconsequential. So we've got a piece of plywood, and I'm veneering both sides with rosewood veneer. I told the guy that where appropriate, I would like to line the trunk with hinoki wood or Japanese cypress, and the reason for that is it's got a lot of the same properties as cedar, so it keeps the bugs away and it keeps the box smelling nice. I've got this old stuff that's been lying around for years, and now I'm trying to get it true so that I can embed it in that plywood. The straighter this is, the nicer the seam will be. That's wonderful. Okay, before I put this bottom in, I want to pre-finish it. I've masked off my glue lines and where the hinoki wood is, because I want the scent of the hinoki. Every time they open that chest, I want them to smell the hinoki. Well, I think it's time to buy a new gun, because no matter how you adjust this thing, I just can't get the fan to go wide enough. Well, I got these pretty fancy hinges that we're sinking in. They'll be invisible, and the bottom parts are already sunk in. Now I've traced around, and I've got to route very carefully to make them fit flush. So what's going on here is I got to fit this pretty big, deep lock in. I went around and chiseled my perimeter, and then I went around and chiseled my inner perimeter, and I used the router with the copy bit to plunge down step by step until I ran out of depth, and the rest of it I've got to drill out with an auger bit and clean it up with a chisel.